Hello everybody, welcome back from Top of the Wall. My name is Mason Note, and we have another deck today called To Your Face. It is a Pauper deck, Boros actually, Boros equipment. And it's centered around a bunch of zero-drop artifacts and creatures that give you rewards for having equipment. Now the deck is actually pretty low curve, rather aggressive, and pretty interesting. I feel like as the Pauper meta grows and there are more there's more artifact support that goes into it and time expands, this might get a little bit better. I want to start with 3 play sets of zero-drop equipments. We have Cathar's Shield, we have Spider's Silk Net, and we have Bone Saw. All of these artifacts that you see up here, hold on, wait a second. Whoosh. Oh, too late, they're already there. They've been there too long. Alright, well, these artifacts, none of them have necessarily a huge punch or a huge impact in the game, but all of them do count as artifacts, they count as equipment, and they can be equipped, which is what we're looking for in them. And of course the better one, if we have to choose, typically is Bone Saw. Now the artifacts, what they're paying off for having them is the 4 Goblin Cavaliers and the 4 Militant Inquisitors. These 2 playsets of creatures both give you bonuses for having equipment, and particularly Goblin Cavalier is a little bit large. It gets a little bit larger with the equipment, and has its own built-in evasion with the trample, and it is one of our. I think it's preferred in a lot of games to start with this first, but in the later game, the Militant, of course, does have its benefits because you can play for 3. You don't need to equip the artifacts, and it does have its own nice sized body that is a relevant threat. And for our other creatures in the deck, we have the 4 Vault Scourge and the 4 Glint Hawks. The Glint Hawk, which I'm fantastic. I love this one card. You can play a Bone Saw or the Cathar's Shield or any of the zero-drop artifact equipments. Play them on 1. Play Glint Hawk. You get a 2/2 flyer on 1 for 1 mana. Replay the equipment. So essentially, it's just a 1 mana 2/2 flyer. If you have a zero-drop equipment on the battlefield that isn't equipped, it costs you nothing to pick it up and replay it. It's fantastic. And Vault Scourge is something that I really like just in the main deck. I'm sure that there's a better card for it. Let me know in the comments below if you know a better card than Vault Scourge for this deck, or have some opinions, or check it out on tappedout.net, and let me know in the comments if there is some card that I should be having in the maybe section of the deck list, or something that you think that I should add in. A Vault Scourge is there because just for 1 mana and 1 Phyrexian black, which we can't pay, so it's always just 2 life. Just 1 mana, 1/1 flyer with lifelink. Equipping the Bone Saw to it, or equipping a lot of other equipment to it, and giving it any kind of power boost. Just 2 damage in the air. It's a 2-point life swing every single time, and creates a distance. And I like it against burn. Having 4 lifelink creatures in the main in a format where burn is very good is actually kind of a great luxury. There's not a lot of creatures with lifelink at common. There are some, but there's not as many that are as relevant as Vault Scourge. Now, for the 2 remaining pieces of equipment that we have, the Bladed Pinions, which gives flying and first strike, and the Flare Husk, which is just a good all-star in Affinity. And Affinity isn't really doing so well right now, but I feel like the Flare Husk isn't necessarily to blame for that. And it's also a creature that can be equipped, which is a problem in a lot of equipment decks, not having enough creatures, or sometimes having too many creatures, and the ability to have it be flexible where it's an equipment, but it's also a creature. Having the ability to choose whether to just treat it as equipment or treat it as a creature is very important to me, and is very important on these creature-reliant decks that don't want too many creatures or don't want too few creatures. Similar to the Boggles issue, where if you have too many or too few, you lose the game. It's similar with equipment decks, and that's why Living Weapon is very important. I didn't like the other creature for 3 mana that was slightly larger, Flare Husk. It wasn't as mana efficient, so I didn't want to put it in. We have our 4 Galvanic Blast, just classic all-star in artifact decks. It's great in pretty much every kind of artifact deck that wants any lightning bolt-esque effect. Just the ability to deal 4 damage to any target, just better lightning bolt is pretty good. Now for our mana base, we are playing the 4 Ancient Den and the 4 Great Furnace, the classic ones. We have our 5 mountains, we have our 4 plains, and we have the 4 Windscarred Crags. Now on to our sideboard. The sideboard has 2 interesting creature cards in it, 2 Guardian of the Guild pack and 2 Standard Bearers. There we go, perfect timing for the transitions. Right on cue, I remembered. The Standard Bearers, I like these because if you equip Cathar's Shield or the Spider Silk Nets to them, they make them much harder to kill for any kind of red deck or deck that relies on any damage dealing effects. They're being forced to target the Standard Bearers, and it may not be enough damage to kill the Standard Bearer, so it essentially just fizzles all of their damage-based removal. While the Guardian of the Guild pack, having protection from mono red, is just a creature that's hard to block. Then you equipped the colorless equipment to it. Now you have this larger threat that's even harder to kill, and is potentially more damage dealing, and is a better blocker, and is able to just continuously get in. I really like that. Particularly good in the slower matchups. And for the slower matchups, we have the 2 Relic of Progenitus, and we do have, I don't think blue is necessarily the slowest of the grindiest color, but we do have the Pyroblast, the 4 Pyroblast to deal with the slower, grindier matchups. Then we have some removal for big creatures and little creatures. We have the Curse of Chains, but we also have the Electricaries to deal with various types of creatures. One is the good old catch-all for the larger creatures, the ones that we don't want to ever untap, and the one is for the tokens and the elves. And finally, we have the 2 cards, Leave No Trace. Leave No Trace, I was never a fan of the Radiance mechanic, but as on removal, just being able to copy your removal card for each card that you would like to blow up is pretty good value. I don't realize sometimes how impactful it is, and I know that it's very now right now in the format Boggles is all right. It's never really been quite on top of the format or as dominating as I feel like a lot of other decks have. But I still feel like having 2 Leave No Trace, and it is still a tier 1 deck, and even though that it's not very interactive, it's hard to interact with. So the decks that are playing foil cards and playing the snuff outs really just have a difficult time with Boggles, so Boggles will stay up there. Hello everybody, welcome back to the wall. My name is Mason Nuff, and we have another deck today. That's all for now. Thank you for watching. If there's anything that you'd like to see in the next video, let me know. And stay tuned for my next series around a bunch of 0-drop artifacts, same time as the creatures that give you rewards for having equipment. Doing them both not simultaneously is actually a pretty low curve, but continuing them rather independently yet simultaneously is pretty interesting. I feel like as the power grows and the select commander card, there's more artifacts that aren't that into an hour or less. This might get a little bit bad, then present it. I want to start with I used to do this all the time just to make myself a better deck builder. We have Cathar's Shield, we have Lately, I think that's actually a really interesting idea for shows. These artifacts to keep going with that. Hopefully, I can see you guys in the next party there. Thanks for everything. Coming in for that face touch. Alright, well, these artifacts, none of them have necessarily a huge punch or a huge impact in the game. All of them do count as artifacts, they count as equipment, and they can be equipped